رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So since the month of Ramadan is coming, I thought we'd go straight into Kitab al-Sawm. So we've skipped a lot of chapters, but we'll come back to the chapters afterwards inshallah. Kitab al-Sawm, so we're going to do cold hard fiqh. We're not going to go into any of the spiritual reasons as to why we fast and all the rest of it all. That's something that the fuqaha talk about separately and ulama talk about separately. We're just doing the masla masail of fasting or kitab al-sawm, inshallah. So you'll also see here that there's a lot of there's hadiths that come to play and Quran ayats, but there's also a lot of rational thinking that goes on as well behind the masla masail as well as we go through the text. So he begins by saying kitab al-sawm. As-sawmu darban. Darban means there's two types. Darban is plural. Fasting is of two types. Okay. As-sawmu darban. Wajibun. Wajib here is synonymous with farz. Okay. I'll talk about why they use wajib in the early days. But for now, just understand that there's a compulsory sort of fast as well. And then there's a second one, which we'll also come back to later on as well. So what as-sawmu darban wajibun. So there's the wajib fast. There's also the nafil fast, the optional fast. Normally speaking, you have two types of fast. Fal-wajibu darban, and when you have farz fasting, you also have two types. Minhu ma yata'allaku bi-zamanin bi'aynihi. That one fast from the farz fast is one which is fixed with a time. It has a zaman which is fixed. Qasomi Ramadan. Like the fasting of the month of Ramadan, it's fixed. You can't fast in Rajab or you can't fast any other time. When Ramadan fast is fixed. Okay. And he gives a second example of a fast that's also fixed. It's called Nazril Mu'ayyan. Nazril Mu'ayyan is what we call nazar fasting. Like you say to Allah or you make a dua to Allah that Allah, if my business is successful or if I pass my exams, I'll fast on a certain day. You fix it. So that's the two types of fasting that are fixed. Okay, so I'm going to stop there first. I'm going to go into some of the commentary. Kitab al-Sawm. إنما أخره مع أنه عبادة بدنية كالصلاة. Okay, so he's brought it out because he's explaining why. So this is the commentary. He's brought out fasting even though it's a form of ibadah which is badani. It's a physical form of ibadah, like fasting, like namaz. Namaz is salah is obviously we're not talking about the spiritual side of it, but salah is a physical form of ibadah. You need to be in the masjid, you need to do postures. This is also similar to fasting. وقدم الزكاة عليه اقتداء بالقرآن. Now the question is, this is the ulama discussing this, is why did he bring it why did he bring zakat first? So if you look at the chapter before, it's talking about zakat. Iqtida' bil Quran. He's following the Quran because Allah says in the Quran, wa aqimus salata wa atuz zakata. So the fuqaha are also following the same way. Allah mentions salah first, so we're going to mention salah first, and then Allah mentions zakat next, so we're going to mention zakat next, and then the next thing is sawm and fasting. Then the question is, we did tahara first. If you remember, we did tahara first. So why is tahara mentioned at the beginning? So I think I've explained at the beginning that tahara is the door into salah. Yeah, without tahara there's no salah. So the ulama then mention tahara first, and then they talk about salat and zakat. وَكَذَا فِي الْحَدِيثِ بُنِيَ الْإِسْلَامُ عَلَى خَمْسٍ. So you see this very, very common. They always bring a Quran ayat to prove why they've done something, and then they bring a hadith to prove it as well. And there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the Islam is built upon 5 pillars. To believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the fast, the salah, and then so forth. Okay. وَالصَّوْمُ فِي اللُّغَةِ. Now he's telling you what sawm means in lughat, in a dictionary. The lexical meaning of fasting. أي هو الإمساك على أي شيء كان في أي وقت كان. So it's imsak means to hold yourself back from something in a specific period of time. So as you know, fasting, we don't fast for 30 days continuously. Allah says to us that you don't fast from sunrise to sunset. So it's a specific time that Allah has given to you, and it's a specific act that you stay away from. There's certain things that you stay away from. Imsak means to restrict yourself or to hold yourself back. Allah says in the Quran, فَقُولِي إِنِّي جَزَرْتُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ صَوْمًا. Right? إِمْسَاكًا عَنِ الْكَلَامِ. So this is about Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam. that say that Sawm can also mean not speaking. So in this verse in the Quran here, remember she made that nazar, going back to the nazar here, she made a vow of what? That she won't speak. Because Sawm literally means you don't do something. That's what it literally means. It doesn't mean about, obviously when we talk to one another, when we say fasting, we literally mean not eating, drinking and having sexual relationships. But in a more general sense, what does it mean? You're staying away from something. Okay? So, أي إمساك عن الكلام, that she made the vow that she won't speak. That's the story of Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam. Then you also have what fasting means in the Sharia. You'll notice this a lot. You have a normal lexical meaning of a word, and then the word has a specific meaning in the Sharia. And that's no different to many other sciences. Right? If you study economics or medicine or whatever, you'll have a word that's generally understood in a certain way, but in that field it means something else. That's why you always, Zuba, you're doing logic with me. Remember when we said in grammar it means this, but in logic it means something else. So you always have to know that that word can mean different things in different contexts. So in the Sharia, this is what you need to bear in mind. Ibaratun an imsakin makhsusin. That in the Sharia, Sawm means something that Allah has specifically told you to stay away from. Makhsus. Something that Allah has told you specifically to stay away from. What is that? وَهُوَ الْكَفُّ عَنْ قَضَاءِ شَهْوَتَيْن. To stay away from fulfilling two desires, i.e. shahwatul batan, which is the desire of the food, and wa shahwatul farj, and to stay away from the sexual desires. Okay, it's really interesting that the fuqaha, they don't say it here that you don't eat, you don't drink, and you don't have sexual relationship. What do they say is the desires. They're telling you something here, that the way they've written this is to imply that the whole point of fasting is to restrain the desires. Can you see what they're doing here? It's a very clever use of language, because they could have said don't eat, don't drink, don't have sexual relationship. But what they're rather saying here in the Arabic here, this is why Arabic is really beautiful, is shahwatul batan, the desires of the stomach. So the idea is that you're meant to restrain your desires. And so when we talked on Friday, when we were doing the dars on Saturday, we were talking about how, how people at the time of iftar, they absolutely gouge themselves with food. Right? The whole purpose of fasting is lost. When the fast is accepted in Allah, but a person eats so much at iftari time that the purpose, which is what? To control the desires, is lost. Right? So this is something to bear in mind as well. Okay? So shahwatul batan, shahwatul farj min shakhs makhsusin, for a person that's been specified. وهو أن يكون طاهرا من الحيض والنفاس في وقت مخصوص. The reason they mentioned this part here for a specific person is because obviously women who are going through menopause and post-menstrual bleeding, or hayz and nifas as we call it, they don't need to fast. So this is only for specific people that need to fast. وهو ما بعد طلوع الفجر. This is when the sun rises. We can go into detail about some other time about when did the sun actually rise and so forth. But the idea is that the time of fasting begins when the sun rises. Okay, obviously we will talk about, it's probably less important now, but in summer we used to have two fajrs if you remember. Right, so when does the sun rise and so forth. وَهُوَ مَا بَعْدَ طُلُوعِ الْفَجْرِ إِلَى غُرُوبٍ, until the sun sets. Ghurub is Maghrib. You know the word Maghrib? That's where it comes from, and that's why Morocco is known as Maghrib, because the Arabs saw it as the furthest point as the where the sun set. Okay, in their case it would have been the Atlantic Ocean. إلى الغروب بصفة مخصوصة وهو أن يكون على قصد التقرب. That you're fasting with the intention, qasd means intention, of taqarrub. Right? That you're fasting with the intention of taqarrub to who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's also another purpose of fasting. So while we're doing fiqh here, they're also in the language telling you some of the secrets of fasting as well, which is, if you know Arabic, you'll pick these things up, or you should pick them up. That fasting, if you're fasting and you're still increasing in disobedience, your Ramadan is not spiritual, then you need to think about why you're fasting. If you're fasting but then at the time of iftar you're absolutely gouging on food, right, the iftar becomes difficult for you, then you need to say, well, am I really restraining my desires? Okay, and these are really important things to bear in mind. وَعْلَمْ أَنَّ لِلصَّوْمِ سِتَّةَ أَقْسَامٍ. And know that fasting, or there's 6 types of fasting. I'll give you the list of them now, okay? So there's 6 types of fasting that a person can do as a Muslim, as a believer. قسم منها لا يجوز إلا بالنية من الليل. Right, rather than read this, I'll explain them to you. Number one is the Ramzan one. The first fast is the one that is in Ramzan. That's the first one. The second one is the one that's mentioned here, Nazr al-Mu'ayyan. This one, Ramzan Nazr al-Mu'ayyan. These two are fixed fasting in the terms of Ramzan is the month of Ramadan. Allah has decreed when you do that, and this is when you fix it yourself that on Fulan day I will fast if something happens for me, something happens in my favor, or whatever, right? That's the two ones. So these two are specific ones, the first two. The third one is Qaza Ramzan. That's generally not fixed, right? You can do that whenever outside the month of Ramadan. The fourth one is the opposite of this one, which is you make, it's a non-specified vow that I'll fast when something is done for me. You don't specify, okay? The fifth one is what's called the Expiation Kuffara, and I'll give you examples of Kuffara, right? So, when a person says something to his wife like Zihar, like you're like the back of my mother, it's almost like saying divorce your wife. There's certain Kuffaras that you need to do, okay? And the sixth one is the optional one, Nafil fast. On a Monday and a Thursday, Chalo, you know what? There's no food today, I'll fast. Yeah, so that's the optional one. And a person can do that up till Zawal. So you wake up in the morning, it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. You know what? The day's short, I'll just fast today. You can do that, right? Okay. So those are the 6 types of fasting that Imam Qururi mentions. So قسم منها لا يجوز إلا بالنية من الليل وهو قضاء رمضان ونذر مطلق وكفارة. Okay. Now, I want to just touch upon something else as well once you've made those notes. Okay. Now, in terms of Ramzan and a specified fast, the one that you make a nazar for, okay, because they're fixed days, you have until Zawal to make the niyat for it. So say for example, you wake up in Ramzan and you know what, you never made the intention. Bulgaya, I forgot to make intention. You still have until Zawal to make the intention because it's a fixed day. The same applies to the Nazr Mu'ayyan. Yeah? And the same applies for Nafil as well. So Nafil, for Nafil fast, you can make the intention until Zawal. For Ramzan fast, because it's a fixed fast, there's no other fast you can do in the month of Ramazan. So you have until Zawal to make the intention. Say you had a line, you missed Sihri, I don't know, you just forgot for whatever reason. You're watching boxing, some people watch boxing early in the morning, whatever, right? You forgot, then you still have until Zawal to make the niyat. The same goes for Nazar Mu'ayyan. You fix, for example, I'm going to fast this Friday, but you know what, Friday too, and you forgot, but you've got until Zawal to make the intention for it because you've got that day to fix it. Does that make sense? Yeah? And I'll explain why as well. Okay. The reason is, so one of the reason is that it's they're fixed fast. Ramzan and the fixed Nazar Mu'ayyan, they're fixed, so you can do it till then. The second reason is that they use a rational sort of argument here that Zawal, up until Zawal, that's most of the day. So if you made intention by then, you haven't ate anything, and you made intention for that because there's a usul that says that lil aksar hukmul kul. The most, if you do the most of something, it's like you've done the entire thing. So if you made intention by Zawal, you've still got the rest of the day to finish it off. Right, G.
So for Qaza Ramzan, you have to make the intention at night. Is that compulsory?
Yes, yeah. So I'm going to talk about that now. Yeah. So those 3 fasts you can do them before Zawal. Ramzan one, Nazar Mu'ayyan, and Nafil one. Now in terms of the other one, the other 3, okay, here. قسم منها لا يجوز إلا بنية من الليل وهو قضاء رمضان. For قضاء Ramzan, you have to make niyyat before sunrise. Right? Same for Nazr Mutlaq and the same for Kuffara. The reason is the opposite reason. Why? Because they're not fixed. So you need to fix them, you need to pin them down. Does that make sense?
Is that pre-sunrise, pre-Subh Sadiq?
Pre-Subh Sadiq, pretty much, yeah. To be more technically correct, yes. Because they're floating fast, like they're sort of fast that you can keep. You need to fix them before Subh Sadiq. So those 3, and so I've given you a rational reason for that. Is that clear to everyone?
So the Nazar Mutlaq is like a
So you say, like, you know what, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when I pass my GCSE exams, I'm going to keep 2 fasts. You haven't specified a day.
Okay.
So if you want to do that one, you have to do that. You have to fix the day before Subh Sadiq, before sunrise, basically. Yeah. Does that make sense to everyone?
What's
Because
Nazr
it's
Mu'ayyan again?
Sorry?
Nazr Mu'ayyan.
Nazr Mu'ayyan is the opposite. So they're both the same. There's 2 nazars. One is like you say that I'm going to fast on this specific day. Mu'ayyan, you fixed it.
Specific.
Yeah. For that one, you got till Zawal because it's similar to Ramzan fasting because you fixed the day for you, haven't you? So say for you got
Is that Thursday?
yeah, you fixed Thursday on this particular day. I'm going to do it. Well, Nazar Ghayr Mu'ayyan, you haven't fixed it. I'm just going to do it whenever I get a chance. But that one needs pinning down. So that's why you have to do the niyyat before sunrise. Yeah.
That I imagine is where logic comes into it. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There's a bit of logic into it as well. It makes sense. Yeah.
Certainly like
Yeah.
A bit of a tangent, but was there a difference in? I mean, my understanding was we'll probably go for the necessary other one, isn't it? Cover itself.
What do you mean?
In terms of if you're going to make an intention for fasting, go for the second one.
Yeah, you can do that. You can. You have the complete right to do the. You have the
Is
complete
there
right.
a, is there a thingy difference?
Reward? No, no, it's the same. It's the same. It's the same. It's just that some people like to fix it, like they'll do on a certain day. But that's why they always say, don't fix it and just keep it floating. Keep it floating. Yeah.
Before sunrise.
Before Subh Sadiq, when the sun starts. Yeah. What
What's
day?
the
Sorry?
Why is it nothing one?
Good question. So Saad is awake. Saad is alert. I've not talked about Nafil.
Oh,
What about Nafil? What does Nafil say? Why is Nafil? Minha yajuzu. So here, can you see? منها يجوز من النهار صوم رمضان والنذر والنفل. Why is نفل?
Nafil's just like whatever in it.
Chill.
It's like flexible.
On the day, innit?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it. Let's do it.
I'll talk about Sadis should get an extra biscuit because he's alert. I haven't talked about Nafil on purpose. Nafil is just like requires a bit more discussion. Have you been reading up or something?
That's
No.
never gonna happen.
Okay. So anyway, we'll talk about Nafil. So we're okay with the 5 though, aren't we? We're okay with the 5, yeah? Everybody's okay with Ramzan. Nazar Mu'ayyan, you have to do niyyat before Zawal. Whereas for the other 3, in terms of Nazar Ghair Mu'ayyan, in terms of Kuffara, what's the other one? What's the other one we missed out? Ramzan Qaza, right? You have to do them because they're free floating ones, if you like. You need to fix them before. You need to know what you're doing before. Okay, so we'll go back to niyyat in a minute, Sajid, but it's a good question. There's a long discussion there. وَصَمِ رَمَضَانِ إِعْلَمْ أَنَّ صَوْمَ رَمَضَانَ فَرِيضَةٌ. Now, just going back to talking about Ramzan, that's farz. Allah says in the Quran, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ. Fasting has been prescribed to you. وَعَلَى فَرِيضَتِهِ عِنْ عَقَدِ الْإِجْمَاعِ. But he also says that the scholarly consensus that it's Ramzan. Because the Quran isn't quite clear. The Quran isn't clear. The Quran doesn't actually say that fasting has been prescribed for you in the month of Ramadan. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Yeah, but where's the verse that says كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب? But what's happened is there's ijma, like every school of thought agrees in the month of Ramadan. Okay, we're not going to go into the discussion right now because Zubair is looking at me and saying, Maulana, what about if someone doesn't believe it's in the month of Ramadan? Do we do takfir on that guy? Or do we say, is that what you're thinking? No. But that's a question that we can go into, right? But we're not going to go into that because that's studied by his question. Okay, because we've done epistemology, haven't we? But we're going to leave that. Okay, so but because there's ijma on it, it's very strong. I mean, and the other thing is it's mutawatir as well because sorry, yeah, it's mutawatir amalan. Remember, we don't have to have a hadith for everything. Do we have a hadith for the 5 times Namaz? Not necessarily. It's always been done from the Prophet ﷺ's time. Every companion did it, every tabi'in did it, every tabi'in did it. Everybody been fasting month for Ramadan. It's known that you fast in month for Ramadan. So it's mutawatir amalan. Remember we did Allama Laknawi and we did different types of mutawatir. You know these guys who are obsessed now, give me hadith for this akhi. Right? We don't have to have a hadith for everything. Okay? Even a non-Muslim knows that we fast in month for Ramadan. It's so am. Even a non-Muslim who knows something about Islam will know that we fast in month for Ramadan because it's like alcohol. Everybody knows that Muslims don't drink alcohol. You don't need a hadith for it per se, but it's known, yeah? Okay, so فريضة وقوله تعالى وَلْيُوفُوا نُذُورَهُمْ. Okay, وَالْمَنْذُورُ wajibun. So he's talking about why nazar is also wajib, and that's because he uses the Quran in Allah's verse in the Quran. وَلْيُوفُوا نُذُورَهُمْ that fulfill your nazar. So that's why. So we have the proof for why Ramzan is wajib. We also have proof from the Quran why nazar is wajib. Yeah, and that's taken from the Quran. It's specified Surah Al-Hajj.
So
Okay.
For clarity, Quran doesn't say you have to fast in the month of Ramadan.
The Quran is not clear on it, but ijma, there's ijma. Remember what we did, the usul we did last year, if you remember,
Yeah.
right? It's mutawatir, it's the ijma. Ijma is basically a form of proof in the Sharia. The Ummah has agreed upon the month of Ramadan, and this has always been the practice. Right from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam time, we don't know anybody who did it outside the month of Ramadan. So it's mutawatir, it's like everybody does it, like every Muslim has done it this way, yeah? Everybody wants to change it, yeah. Okay, so but the Prophet did it, all this, hundreds of thousands of Sahaba did it, everybody's done it. Okay, so what about niyat of min al-layl? Okay, so there's this discussion that you need to make the niyat at night. Now what he means here, bi niyat min al-layl. If you go back to the top, as-sawmu darban, wajib wa nafl. فالواجب دربان منه ما يتعلق بالزمان بعينه كصوم رمضان. That's the first one, yeah, that's the Ramzan. والنذر المعين, that's the second one, which is fixed by time. فيجوز صومه بنية من الليل. He's saying that you're allowed to fast for these two, Ramzan and Nazr al-Mu'ayyan, with a niyyat made at night. Yeah? فإن لم ينوي حتى أصبح أجزأته النية ما بينه وبين الزوال. So I'll explain this. I've already touched upon it. So he says that it's permissible to make the niyat for these two, Ramzan and Nazr al-Mu'ayyan, at night. فإن لم ينوي, if you don't do it for whatever reason, حتى أصبح, that the sun's risen and it's daytime, أجزأته النية, the niyat will be permitted ما بينه وبين الزوال, from that time until zawal. So you've still got until zawal for Ramadan and Nazr al-Mu'ayyan. We'll talk about nafil in a minute, Sajib. Okay, so he's talking about this. وتصح النية في رمضان وغيره. اعلم أن النية هي معنى. So he's talking about what niyat means here. Okay, so I'm going to go briefly into this. What does niyat mean? Do you have to verbally say? You know, some people say, "Oi, we haven't said the dua yet." Does a person have to verbally say it, or does a person, as long as the person knows in his heart that he's fasting? Okay, so he says. Here, معرفته بقلبه أي يصوم صوم يصوم. Like he knows with his heart that I'm fasting, right? So you don't have to physically, verbally say the dua. Okay. والسنة أن يتلفظ بها بلسانه. But the sunnah is to do talaffuz, to verbally say it. But by just making intention in your heart is done. It's like for namaz, you know, when you're taught in madrasa, the dua. It's a good habit because you teach kids from a young age to do the niyyat. Okay.
Is that specific to fasting? To verbalize a niyyah?
Yes. No. I don't know. I don't think it is.
Yeah, it's Allahumma sallallahu.
Yeah. Those are the sunnah du'a that we have from Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
That's the sunnah. That's from the sunnah.
Yeah.
First hearing you'll see.
Is that on the timetable, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll see.
So that's from the sunnah.
So-
But you don't. I haven't come across a sunnah like classic. We're trying to do like sunnah for Eid namaz. We don't have
No.
like verbal.
No. But we do it as a form of.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
I appreciate that. But
to
it seems like a specific.
It seems like a specific. I'd have to look at it in more
To
detail.
verbalize it.
Verbalize it, yeah. فيقول, he gives examples. فيقول إذا نوى من الليل. So if he says, for example, and Imam the commentator says, نويت أن أصوم غدا لله تعالى من فرض رمضان. I'm fasting. I'm intending to fast tomorrow for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the farz of Ramadan. Yeah. وإن نوى من النهار يقول, if he's fasting during the day, say he wakes up in the morning, right? نويت أصوم هذا اليوم لله تعالى من فرض رمضان. That I'm fasting today for the sake of Allah from the farz of Ramadan. Okay. ولو قال نويت أصوم غدا إن شاء الله تعالى. So this is a debate that ulama have. I don't know if I want to go into it, but I'll go into it just for the benefit. If someone says, for example, I am going to fast tomorrow if Allah wishes. Yeah. If someone says, I'm going to fast tomorrow if Allah wishes. Oh, nawaitu asumul yawm inshallah. And he wakes up in the morning, he says, I'm going to fast today if Allah wishes. فَفِي الْقِيَاسِ لَا يَسِيرُ صَائِمًا. The qiyas, the reasoning says that it shouldn't be a fast. It's not considered a fast. Okay?
Well, Allah does wish for you to fast.
This is what he says. Because you're making an istisna, if Allah wishes.
Oh, okay.
Right? So he's explaining this. لأن الاستثناء يبطل الكلام. When you make the word for in English is exception. When you make an exception to the rule, you're sort of destroying what you're trying to intend. You're kind of making it deficient. Yeah? كما في البيع والطلاق والعتاق. Like if you, we'll come across this in financial transactions as well. You know, like Azuba, I'll sell you this if Allah wills. That's problematic. You can imagine like problems will happen, right?
We
Or-
have to say that for everything.
Yeah, we say inshallah akhi, but here this is before like we started making it into a joke.
I think something that is always fixed. You can't say inshallah.
Yeah, that's
It's
the
like
reason.
You can't say inshallah I'm a Muslim.
No, but when Quran Surah
That's
Kahf,
what it
it was intended to tell the story.
No, that was different in the sense that he had no answer.
Also in that sense, but
Yeah.
Or even
Yeah.
talaq,
Yeah.
even in talaq
Yeah.
and so forth. Like itaq means here when you're freeing the slave. Okay, وَنَحْوِ ذَلِكَ. وَفِي الْإِسْتِثْنَاءِ يَسِيرُ صَوْمٍ. But some ulama say that if a person says inshallah, then he's fasting. لأن الاستثناء هذا ليس على الحقيقة الاستثناء. Now the Hanafis are obviously very clever. So they say when you make a mustasna, when you make an exception, you're not really intending an exception.
Our use of inshallah is a bit more.
When you say our, you mean today.
We've never been
Yeah,
here.
as in our.
It's like we're not going.
Yeah.
Inshallah, you come into
So what did
If you said inshallah you're fasting, it means you are fasting.
Yeah, so this is what he says. So he says, وَإِنَّمَا هُوَ عَلَى الْإِسْتِعَانَةِ وَطَلَبِ التَّوْفِيقِ مِنَ اللَّهِ. So the Hanafi are saying that we have an opinion that when a person says, I'm fasting tomorrow, inshallah, he's basically saying in a way that Allah will help me. Allah give me the tawfiq to do it. And that's how we generally say as well, don't we? Inshallah, Allah give me the tawfiq. Okay. فَلَا يَسِيرُ مُبْتِلًا لِلنِّيَّةِ. So this won't make his niyyat batil. Okay. بخلاف طلاق ونحوه. Then he gives in talaq, when a person says I'm going to give you talaq to his missus, inshallah, then there's a difference there. Okay. But we'll go into all of that. Why is it that when a person says to his missus, inshallah, I'm going to give you talaq tomorrow, why is the talaq actually occurred? Why has it occurred? Whereas in the case of fasting, it hasn't actually occurred. I mean, in the case of fasting, the fasting actually doesn't take place. Okay. He just talked about it briefly. I'll just go through it and we'll save it for when we get into talaq. أن الاستثناء عمل اللسان فيبطل ما يتعلق باللسان من أحكام الطلاق والإتاق ونحوها. Now, when you do istisna, when you say inshallah in this case, is a amal of the tongue. And because it's an amal of the tongue, and in talaq they look at what's been said. You don't look at intention. Right? So you can say, I never intended to divorce her. Man, you said talaq, man. You give her talaq, khalas. Yeah, you said that's why talaq is a serious thing. You can't just say it for a joke, even if you don't intend it. Talaq hizai, you know what I mean? Because an amal of the lisan. So here he's saying that because you said it, it's considered. Okay. وَأَمَّا النِّيَّةُ فَعَمَلُ الْقَلْبِ. Here because it's niyyat here is an amal of the qalb. In fasting, what do you do to differentiate? In talaq, it's if you say it, it's like you've made intention, it's done. Whereas because in fasting, the fuqaha will go into discussion why did you do this. Because for fasting is an amal of the heart, the lisan is superfluous. It's not really that much of a consideration. Yeah, does that make sense? فَلَا تَبْتُلُ بِالْإِسْتِثْنَاءِ الَّذِي هُوَ عَمَلُ اللِّسَانِ. Because they differentiate an amal that takes place with the tongue and the difference between the amal that takes place with the heart. Now in fasting, what matters is your heart. Right? So as long as you know your fasting is khalas. Whereas in talaq, we don't look at, because talaq is seen as a mu'amalat. Talaq is seen as a transaction. It's a transactional thing. We'll go into all the philosophy behind it some other point. But talaq, or marriage even, marriage is seen as a transactional thing. And because it's seen as a transactional thing, when you go before the judge can, qadi, if you went to a supreme judge, the qadi, he can only judge upon what he's heard, what he's seen. Right? So even like in a court of law here, you can't say, well, I intended this. What's there is there, right? But in ibadat, in this particular ibadat, I mean, talaq is a form of ibadat, but it generally comes under a form of mu'amalat, how we live with one another.
That's why namaz, if you make the wrong intention, sometimes you still accept it.
Yeah.
If you said the wrong word or wrong.
Yeah, because that's with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
Salah is a very personal thing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But things like, on fasting is the same. But things like marriage, when we cover it, the philosophy behind it, inshallah, it's within the purview of day-to-day transactions. So bay', business is between me and Zubair, for example. So there, it's about what I've said to him, right? It's not about what I intended, because the judge can't tell what's in my heart. The judge said, well, you said this to Zubair, you sold it to him, khalas, end of deal. Whereas in Sawm and fasting, it's not really a mu'amala. You don't go to a judge with your intention, disputing your intention over whether you made niyat over fasting or. So that's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can you see how complex and how beautiful it is as well? Right? So this is something to bear in mind, okay? So, and then the Shafis have a different view.
So can I ask a daft question?
No, there's no such thing as daft question. Bismillah.
You just said earlier that if you say inshallah when you're doing a financial transaction, then it doesn't count. You can't use that word. But for talaq, you could, and it would count.
No, as in it would make the talaq. It would apply. The talaq would apply.
But in a financial transaction, it wouldn't count, would it? If you said inshallah, because you've used, it's not terminology that you should be using.
No. Yeah,
So
I
that's
need.
kind of contradicting.
I need to look at. You're right. I need to look at that again in more detail. Inshallah. Look at that.
Even in
Ajib.
joke, if you say,
On the boat table.
even in joke,
Mhm.
if you say, this, I think there's a hadith to the mafhum, like two things are effective,
Mm.
even in jest.
Mm.
One is nikah, and one is
So
divorce.
they have the hadith for it as well.
Okay.
So if you say like we're sitting here and there's a sister sitting here and then someone just says for a joke to her that will you marry me? Nikah teja. If no, it's done. Khalas, finish. That's a simple nikah is.
When you're kids,
And if you say to your wife for a
Feels
joke,
smart,
talaq
feels
talaq teja.
Yeah.
Talaq is done.
I actually asked this to both them sir,
Yeah.
about kids doing plays.
Yeah.
You know, doing plays and
Yeah.
doing plays. So
Yeah.
you know what he says? That when they bring them home, just this time to give three times.
But it actually happens. It can happen this way, yeah. Because in our religion we try to make things easy for people, and because again
Yeah,
marriage falls within
What if then they
business. Why do you
Yeah,
want to
but
make business
it's
complicated for?
Side by what if they want to get married?
Yeah. So let's move on to the next one before we and I want to go to a moon discussion, but we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait for next week,
Oh,
inshallah.
no,
Okay.
we must go to that.
Next.
So let's just quickly summarize quickly, very very quickly. All right. So for Ramadan and Nazar Muayyan, Niyat is okay until Zawal. Okay. For all the other ones, except Nafil, which we'll cover some separately, for all the other ones, you have to do the Niyat before Subah Sadiq. The reason being is they're not fixed, so you need to fix them. All right. So that's what we've covered so far in summary. We went on a slight digression talking about Inshallah and so, right? But that's just to flesh out the idea that fasting is seen as a form of ibadah, whereas marriage, for example, is seen as a form of transaction. That's why you pay the mahar and there's all these other things that go into. We'll go into all of that, right? And this is why certain Islamophobes will be like, what kind of religion is this? Like, you see marriage as some sort of transaction. But we'll deal with that, inshallah, and I'll equip you to hopefully respond to that. That's not a common one that they throw at us. They throw the other ones, but this is something that you will go through, inshallah. Okay? So, everybody okay with that? Okay, so. وضرب الثاني. So I'm just going to quickly talk about a second type. ما يثبت في الذمة كقضاء رمضان والنذر المطلق والكفارة. So these are the other three, right? That ما يثبت في الذمة. So they're necessary to fulfill, like the qada of Ramadan. So this is the second type. Yeah, the qada of Ramadan. والنذر المطلق. Mutlaq means like you just made a nazar that I'll fast on it whenever I get a chance to do this. And kafarat. Kafarat is expiation, right? You know the 60 consecutive days fasting and so forth. We'll go through that for kafara. Right? Kafarat. فلا يجوز صومه إلا بنية من الليل. So for these three that we just mentioned right now, you're not permitted to fast for them except that you make niyyat at night. Right? فلا يجوز. You're not allowed to do that. Okay? لأنه غير متعين, because you haven't fixed them. So you have to fix them from the beginning. Because you can do kafara anytime, you can do nazr mutlaq anytime, you can do qada Ramadan anytime. So you have to fix it beforehand. Okay? وكذلك صوم zihar, also the fasting of zihar. This is zihar is when you say something to your wife. We'll go into it. When you make certain pronouncements to your wife, like you say you like the back of my mother. Then there's you have to do kafara for that to get back together. Okay? وَالنَّفْلُ كُلُّ يَجُوزُ بِنِيَّةٍ قَبْلَ الزَّوَالِ. This is really interesting now. He mentions the two that can be done until zawal. Then he mentions three that have to be done before sunrise. And then he mentions nafil separately. Even though nafil, you can do it before zawal. وَالنَّفْلُ كُلُّ يَجُوزُ بِنِيَّةٍ قَبْلَ الزَّوَالِ. All types of nafil fasting, you can do them until, you can make the intention for them until zawal time. Okay?
So zihar you have to do it before the Surah Sadiq as well.
Yeah. Now there's a hadith for nafil fasting. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, the narration is basically the Prophet woke up one day and he asked about food. There's no food. There was no food that day. So what did he say? Inni izan la sa'im. I'll fast today. So we have a riwayat for this as well. There's also a rational reason. I can't remember right now. Zahid, do you remember? There's a rational reason. I can't remember. I'll put it in a WhatsApp group once I look into it. But there's also a reason, a logic behind why nafil can also be done. But nafil, you understand the idea that it's not fixed anyway, so you can do it. But they also have a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that supports it as well.
So that was nafil fast, was it?
That was nafil fast. The Prophet ﷺ woke up in the morning, there was no food, and he just said, Inni idhan la sa'imun, that I'll fast today then. So you can do that. So it's again, you can fix it. And the fact that he made the statement after sunrise proves that you can continue. You can make the nafil fast until thingy. Alright?
So obligatory is for example, Ramzan fast, yeah?
Ramzan, yeah.
And supererogatory fast?
It's a nafil fast.
The nafil fast.
Nafil fast, yeah. So everybody clear with those 6 categories now. You should be clear about the 6 categories. You should be clear as to the rules regarding them, because a lot of people this question comes up every Ramzan with me. People come and ask me that, I forgot to do my niyat. Okay, fine, just do it. Did you know you were fasting? So we're Hanafis, right? So we try and find a way out for them. So like, wait, you know it's Ramzan anyway, isn't it? Like, like you should be fasting. Did you at night? Did you think about it? Like, yeah. So there's always that vague idea. But our elders, mashallah, they make us say it, which is a good habit. And I actually believe that we should continue doing that with our children. That we don't want to lose the amal of.
I think also isn't there a leeway that's saying, I'm sure we read it together.
Yeah.
But you can make it when at the start of Ramadan saying, I'm going to fast all of Ramadan.
Yes, you can do that as
Because
well.
it's in that, okay.
Because there's nothing else you can do. There's no other fast you can do anyway.
Yeah.
So if you want, you can just say at the beginning, I'm going to fast on time.
This potentially,
I love
you
this one,
say
man.
the first of Ramadan comes and you fall asleep and you don't know and you wake up after Zawal. That's probably
He sorted, didn't he? He's boxed it.
No.
no. But if you
If you didn't know,
before
yeah,
you
if you
went to
didn't
sleep,
know. Yeah.
Someone in the morning told you it's Ramazan.
So we have had this situation in
Like,
Blackburn
this is the first
apparently
fast,
many
yeah,
years
many
ago.
years ago.
Many years ago,
Eid namaz,
they
yeah.
found out Eid namaz do too. I think there was some
Yeah.
confusion. But we'll go into all of these things.
People break the fast.
Let's keep it simple for now.
'Cause the guy who
Okay,
was-
so we've got a bit more time. I'm just going to quickly go. Suhail, are you okay waiting or?
yeah.
Okay, so we're okay with that broad understanding, okay? I'm not going to go into more detail because it can get really complicated. I did post a question in a group. I sent you a question in a group and I sent you an article to read. One is a question that if we have time, we'll go back to the question and I'm going to ask you guys what you think. Number 2, it was the article on the moon, Hilal. That was written by my friend Sheikh Dr. Suhail. I think I shared that this morning. So we might not get time to discuss it as much. We're not going to go into details about moon sighting issues. We're not here to discuss all of these things. We're just going to go through the fiqh, okay? So let's move on to the next section of discussion. وَيَنْبَغِي لِلنَّاسِ, right? And we'll end here, inshallah. أَنْ يَلْتَمِسُوا الْهِلَالَ. It's necessary or it's required for people to seek out the moon. Yeah, so what do? We just go on Makkah live, Medina live, and we find out beforehand. What you're really supposed to do is go and try and look for the moon. Yeah, أن يلتمسوا الهلال في اليوم التاسع والعشرين, the 29th day of Sha'ban. So go somewhere, get some friends together, try and look for the moon. It's possible that you'll see it. Okay. So this is something that he mentions. And then he says, فَإِنْ رَأَوْهُ صَامُوا. If you see it, you fast. Simple. Okay? وَإِنْ غُمَّ means if it's like a cloudy day. عَلَيْهِمْ أَكْمَلُوا عِدَّةَ الشَّعْبَانِ 30 يَوْمًا. If it's a cloudy day and you haven't seen it, then you complete 30 days of Sha'ban. Very much straightforward, okay? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftaru li ru'yatihi. When you see it, fast, and when you see it, do iftar, as in end the month of Ramadan, okay? فَإِنْ غَمَّ عَلَيْكُمُ الْهِلَالِ. So this is the hadith of Prophet ﷺ. If the crescent is not visible, فَأَكْمِلُوا عِدَّةَ الشَّعْبَانَ 30 يَوْمًا. Then do the 30 days of the month of Sha'ban. وَلِأَنَّ الْأَصْلَ بَقَاء الشَّهْرِ. This is something that the fuqaha talk about here. So here's the hadith. Where's it gone? Are you? Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftaru li ru'yatihi fa in ghamma alaykum al-hilal fa aqbilu 'iddat ash-sha'ban 30. That's the hadith. Then they talk about usul. What's the asl? Baqa'u ash-shahr. The default position is the month is baqi. As in you follow the full. The default is always you follow the full month. You complete the month. فَلَا يَنْتَقُ عِنْدَهُ إِلَّا بِالدَّلِيلِ. You don't go to the next month unless you have a reason otherwise to go to the next month. This is the default position. Okay. وَلَمْ يُوجَدْ. Because the moon is not found. فَلَا يَصَوْمُ يَوْمُ الشَّكْ. This is the day of shak. So this is the day. So you shouldn't fast on this day. Okay.
So is there alternative views within the Hanafi school
What do you mean?
on that ruling?
What day?
Like we had for wuzu with below the elbows or
No,
over
this
the
is
elbows.
it. This is you don't fast on the Yawm Shak. Yawm Shak is the day of the 30th. You know the day that you shouldn't fast on that day. The ulama say generally, unless it's your habit, like that's what you normally do, then it's different. Was that your question, or you had a different question? What was your question specifically?
I forgot.
Okay, when it comes back to you, tell me. وَلَا يُصَامُ يَوْمُ الشَّكْ وَهُوَ يَوْمُ الثَّلَاثِ مِنْ شَعْبَانَ. So you don't fast on the 30th. If the moon is not sighted, then don't fast on the 30th. Because that's the day of shak. And they also have the Prophet ﷺ saying, مَنْ صَامَ يَوْمُ الشَّكْ فَقَدْ عَصَىٰ أَبَا الْقَاسِمِ. Whoever fasts on the day of shak, doubt, then they've disobeyed Abu al-Qasim, yani they've disobeyed the Prophet ﷺ. Unless it's your habit. Okay? And then they go to discussion, which I'm not going to go into. So if you see the moon on the 29th night, you fast. If you don't see it, you don't fast. The default is you complete the 30 days of Sha'ban. Okay, that's very much straightforward.
So you know that hadith that you just mentioned, Mustafa, it only applies to the 29th of Sha'ban, not
The 30th.
Or 30th of
30th.
Sha'ban, but not the 30th of Ramadan.
No, we'll come back to that at the end of the discussion. Yeah, we'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so everybody's okay with that. وَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْهِمْ أَكْمِلُوا عِدَّةَ الشَّعْبَانَ 30 يَوْمًا ثُمَّ صَامُوا وَمَنْ رَأَى. Now this is really interesting. Okay, وَمَنْ رَأَى الْهِلَالِ. If you go out by yourself, Sadiq goes outside, and Hilal Ramzan, وَحْدَ صَامَ. If you see it yourself, you fast. So say you went out on the 29th night, and you saw it. But Pura Blackman says, "Humne to nahi dekha." Right? But you say, "No, I'm sure, man. I saw the moon." Everybody else is watching Sky News or whatever, and you're out there making the effort to look for it, right? So, وَمَنْ رَأَى هِلَالَ رَمْضَانَ فَقَدْ صَامَ. The wahda for Sama, he needs to fast. وَإِن لَمْ يَقْبَلْ الْإِمَامْ شَهَادَتُهُ. Even if the Imam doesn't accept it, the Imam says, "Allah, how can you see it?" Right? Even if the Imam here is not the Imam Sahib of the Masjid, here the Imam is the Imam of the believers. Because this was written in a context. Because the Imam of the believers has the authority, right, to make religious rulings. We don't have that, unfortunately.
Boris.
Sorry?
We go to Boris.
We go to Boris, yeah, he's our Imam at the moment. وَإِن لَمْ يَقْبِلْ الْإِمَامْ شَهَادَتُهُ. Even if the Imam says, "You know what, I don't believe you right now." If you see the moon, you've seen it yourself, therefore you need to fast. Okay? And the reason being is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which says what? Sumu li ru'yatihi. It's beautiful. They want you to do amal on the hadith. If you see it, the Prophet ﷺ says you fast. If you see it, sumu li ru'yatihi. Fast if you see it. Even if nobody else sees it, because you've seen it. Because you've seen it, you fast. So that's number one reason. You do amal on the Prophet ﷺ of the hadith as well. And if the person sees it, you saw it and you didn't fast, you haven't done amal of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? Then there's qaza for him, not kafara. Qaza means he needs to make up the fast there's no expiation. He doesn't need to feed people for 60 poor people for 60 days. He just needs to do qada.
So what about the matter of unity though? Obviously being, you know,
The
Jama'ah,
fuqaha,
you know, like,
the fuqaha are not interested in unity here. They
this is like a communal.
Yeah, so
Nobody
that-
has to follow you though, is it?
Yeah. You're not obligating anybody to do it. That's gonna come up. No, that's gonna come up next. That's gonna come up next. It's a good question. But remember, we're doing cold hard fiqh here, right? Just follow it through. So unity is a separate discussion at this moment, but we'll come to that. But if you see it, because we want to do amal and hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he just said, if you see you do. Now he's not said that the Hanafis have extended say, well, you need to make everyone else fast. Just because one person in Blackburn saw it, all the Blackburn has to fast. If the person saw it, for him, he needs to fast because he's seen it. So what you do then is you do amal and the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the hadith is very clear. So they don't want you to neglect the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. The interesting first thing is obviously if a person sees it and then he doesn't fast, then for him he needs to do qaza. He needs to make up for it after the month of Ramadan. He doesn't need to do kuffara. Why is that?
Because it's not obligatory on everyone else.
Another reason. Why? You know what kafara is, right? Kafara is you need to feed like for 60 consecutive days people and so forth. You need to do various things. Why is it only qada? You only need to make up for it. Why don't you have to go the extra step why you need to do
Isn't also
kafara?
the kafara is only when you break by eating
Yeah,
anything
but,
else is-
but just okay. So kafara, yes, we'll come back to that. Kafara is when you break your fast, intentionally break it. That's obviously it's a higher form. Of,
Intentionally don't keep the first.
Is it?
but here they said there's no qada. There's qada here. There's no kafara here. Why is that?
It's because the kafara can only be done once you're doing it and you break it. No,
You haven't done anything. You just not
If
fasting.
you've never
So you do
started
qada.
a fast, then
Yes, you haven't done it.
you have to do kafara.
Yeah, for you gotta fast.
If tomorrow.
No, qaza.
You know you have to
Kafara
fast.
So if you deliberately skip, do you have to do kafara?
Here, no.
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 but
No, even not this.
Generally,
Just in
generally.
Ramadan.
No.
Just say
no.
No,
15
you do qada. You have to do qada for it. That's one reason.
It's easy.
Yeah, once you start fasting and then you don't. Yeah. So anyway, so let's go back to this. The reason being is a simple reason. You won't know about it unless you do. But the reason being is that, this person he's fasting on his own, right? And the qadi hasn't accepted his witness. The judge, remember in Hanafi law, we place a lot of emphasis on the judge. Right? The judge has ultimate authority. And because the judge hasn't accepted his witness, this creates doubt. And because in any form of doubt, because there's doubt here, we bring it down and we say, okay, if he doesn't fast, he doesn't need to do qaza, he just needs to do kafara. If the judge said no, this is Ramzan and he didn't, then it's a different matter. But because the judge hasn't accepted his witness, the imam hasn't accepted his witness, even though for him it's fasting, the what can we say, the retribution for it is just kept at qaza. And this is the reason they do it, okay? And it also comes to an usul itself in the Sharia. This is a side point, it's important to bear this in mind as well, that when you're convinced of something yourself, you do it. When you're convinced that you saw the moon, you fast, okay? But you don't force other people. You don't have the authority as a normal everyday Muslim to force other people to fast. You've seen the moon, you fast. You're convinced that you saw it. The only person who has the right to force it is the judge. And that makes sense because you have anarchy otherwise. And this is why in Britain, in the West, we have anarchy because we don't have Imam Abu Yusuf saying, right, Rahimahullah saying, you know what, me as appointed as the state judge of the Muslim empire, like you don't have the, what's it called in the Ottoman Empire? Sultan. Well, not Sultan. Well, Sultan has power, but the Sheikhul Islam, right? He says it because you have to have a final arbitrator. Like in every dispute, there has to be someone who says, you know what, and that's why we have anarchy today in Britain because like everybody's just the qadi today, right?
Mona, if you see the moon
Yeah.
itself, and then after 30 days you have to do Eid.
Yeah, so we're going to come to that. We're going to come to that.
Your calendar, you have to change
Yeah,
dates
we're going to
every
come
week.
to that. We're going to come to that. We're going to come to that. That's a good question.
By about 4 years, you'll be
Make a
fine.
note of that question. No, make a note of that question. We'll come to that. That's a good question. We'll come to that question. These are legitimate questions, right? So I know it sounds funny, but we'll discuss these. Okay, so this is for the person who sees himself. وَإِنْ كَانَ فِي السَّمَاءِ عِلَّةٌ. If there's like an obstruction in the heavens. So this is when someone sees it, right? قَبِلَ الْإِمَامِ. So the Imam will accept the شهادة الواحد العد في رؤية الهلال رجالا كان عيونة. So if there's some obstruction in the skies, like it's cloudy, like it's mostly here, then the Imam will accept the witness of one person. If one person witnesses it, the Imam will say, right, Ramzan starts. Okay, whether it's a male or a female. Now remember, I'm going to give you a clue here. Remember, fasting is what? How do we differentiate fasting from marriage, for example? I don't want to keep pointing at you. Huh?
Between you and
Fasting is an ibadat, dini thing. What's marriage generally? How do we say? It's a dunyawi thing. It's a transactional thing. So in transactions, how many witnesses do we normally need to have?
three.
2 men, right? So, but here, have you noticed what? You only need 1 witness. Okay, so we'll come to that. I'm just giving
That's normal, two.
2 and 1. Yeah.
Normal plain day.
For ibadat, for muamalat is different.
No, I mean if it's a clear sky, then is that one as well?
1 is 1, yeah, by default.
It's in the article.
That's
Yeah.
one time.
So we'll talk about the philosophy of this because I want to end this inshallah. So everybody okay with everything? This is really interesting. We'll go into this because this is a question I asked you guys last night. قبل الإمام الشهادة الواحد العدل في رؤية الهلال. So as long as a person is known to be a just person, whether they're male or female, so we don't discriminate. You know, so how people attack Islam and say, oh, you know, you need two women witnesses equal 1 male witness. You know, this is the Islamophobes argument. They don't understand the philosophy of the Sharia. This doesn't apply across the board, as you can see here. Here, even if a woman says, you know what, I saw it, the Imam will accept it. As long as she's an honest woman, the Imam will say, okay, Ramzan starts. Okay? Hurran kana aw abdan, whether they're a free person or they're a slave. Right? So they don't discriminate here. فَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ. So if there is an obstruction in the skies, then the Imam will take the witness of 1 person. Okay? Why? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم here. قبل الشهادة الواحد في رؤية الهلال. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted 1 witness for the month of Ramadan. So we do amal on the hadith. Okay? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 1 person gave the hadith is there. The person said, I saw it. Rasulullah said, okay, Ramzan starts. So we do amal on the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? فَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ عِلَّةٌ. But if there's nothing in the sky, it's a clear night, clear day, or an evening, لم تقبل الشهادة حتى يراه جمع كثير يقع العلم بخبرهم. If it's a clear, however, if it's a clear night or clear evening, then you need to have a group of people who say they've seen, who say they've seen the moon. Okay. We'll go into detail about this next week, inshallah. But the question I asked was what? Why is 1 witness sufficient for? So you know, in our fiqh, you'll know, well, you will know now that 1 witness is sufficient for witnessing the crescent and declaring the onset of the month of Ramadan. 1 person says they've seen it, right? On a night which is cloudy, then we accept that. And we have the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But why is it that when we want to establish Eid, this is not the case? If you look ahead, it'll say at the end. I've kind of like just put this question just to get you guys to think a little bit. It actually says at the end.
You should have answered it, haven't you?
Yeah, I have been. Have I?
Yeah. Indirectly.
Indirectly I have, but you know, for Eid, 1 witness is not enough. Yeah, it says here.
If you start, is it because if you started early?
Yeah. لم يقبل إمام في هلال الفطر. You know the Eid al-Fitr, the Imam will not accept the ru'ya إلا شهادة الرجلين أو رجلا وامرأتين, or 1 man and 2 women. So it's different. So why is it that to declare Ramadan, one person is enough? But why is it that when it comes to declare Eid, you need 2 men and a woman? Like, why is it that you need a group?
Because everyone's
Fuqaha felt like
quick to declare Eid, isn't it?
That would be
Everyone wants to declare
that would be one maybe reason. But the fuqaha wouldn't use that one.
Because you go one
Sorry.
bringing it early, that's why.
Okay. Cutting it short. Anyone else?
It's like in a way, to go into Ramadan, you're going into something like better, so you need less.
So you're kind of on you're kind of on it. You're kind of on it.
Who would want it?
This is the level of the actual ibadah, isn't it? So there can be absolutely no doubt that it's finishing,
Mm-hmm.
because then you might be cutting short the act of ibadah, which is obligatory.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
So if you fast a day early, or not fast, it's wrongly, it's not so bad. But
Okay.
if you don't fast, if you do Eid on a day, you should be fasting.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
repercussions
That's
are
another
great.
reason. Anyone else? Okay. So the reason. So I'll give you the reason. This is just like a trivia quiz. Like when you go home, you can. Like one of our teachers used to do this to us. Like he used to post these questions, and then we used to think about it. It's good. It gets you to think. Right? So number one is if you look here, there's a clue. لأنه أمر ديني. Yeah, that fasting, it's a religious matter. It's not a mu'amalat. In mu'amalat, this is about declaring the onset of Ramadan, right? For mu'amalat, for witnessing business transactions, you need 2 men and a woman, because it's a mu'amala, it's a social sort of thing where you need stronger witnesses because you don't want people arguing with one another. But because the Hanafis understand fasting as a religious act as such, even though business and marriage and so forth. I mean, even marriage, you don't need 1 witness, you need 2 and 1, don't you, for marriage? But marriage is considered within realm of mu'amala because you're marrying somebody and it's a social thing. But because fasting, like namaz, is seen as an amri dini, they say that you only need 1. So it's not the same as. So first of all, we're differentiating them 2 out. Okay, because a lot of people would use the qiyas where say, well, in marriage or in business you need 2 and 1, so you should have the same thing for declaring the month of Ramadan. They say no, this is amrun diniyun. It's a different one. There's also the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you need 2 witnesses for establishing the end of Ramadan. So we do amal in hadith. Okay. Now the question still remains: why is it 1 for the beginning, for declaring the beginning month of Ramadan? The ulama say that. So why is so they also talk about so they also, and we also have a hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sumu li ru'yati, so they say from there you fast when you see it. But in terms of why we're ending it where we need more witnesses, because you're ending a farz and it's for the benefit of the people, so it's like a mu'amalat. Okay.
So nothing to do with Eid.
No, so hold on. So because we are ending a farz and it is for the benefit of the people, so because you're ending a farz, you're bringing a farz to an end, which they say is actually beneficial for people. So they see as like bringing Ramzan to an end is a benefit for the people, and you're ending a farz. I'm not quite convinced with this, but this is what the books have said. We've had this discussion, right? But because we're ending a farz,
It makes sense that you don't have to fast in it.
yeah, and they want to make it easy for people, and it makes sense to make it easy for people. And you also have the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well, obviously.
But then if you follow through that, like, why do you need 2? Why didn't you just get some 1?
No, because the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
to trying to tie that logic with that. I'm not convinced
Yeah.
with that reason.
But I think this is beyond the hadith. This is sort of
Yeah.
like they're saying, look, it makes sense to end Ramzan early because it's been tough on people, but at the same time,
Does that mean it's been tough on people?
yeah. So this is
Got to be extra sure.
The Saudis usually do 29 anyway.
let's not
Because people want to.
let's not name countries.
That one person might be fatigued mentally. for the whole of Ramadan.
You might be seeing things.
Why are you starting it on that first day?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he is like, yeah. you might
Yeah.
be seeing things.
So the reason is that, so basically what he's saying is because you're ending a farz, and so to bring Ramzan in, you have less witnesses because you want Ramzan to come in, but to end Ramzan, which is a farz ibadat, you got to be really sure you want more people to witness it.
That makes sense.
This is the way they're thinking about it. So you have the hadith. Remember what I said to you guys? Always on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, always Quran hadith. The Quran we have, the hadith we have that when you one witness is sufficient, right? One witness sees the moon, Ramzan starts. But we have a hadith that says you need more than one for ending Ramzan. So they take the hadith, and then we have the third level. So whenever you're explaining Islam or ibadah to people, you always use the Quran and Sunnah first. But then you also say, well, it also makes sense because you want to welcome Ramzan, so you don't want to make it too difficult for people. But then once you're in Ramzan, it's a farz ibadat, and when you want to end the farz ibadat, you want to be really sure that you've ended the farz ibadat together. So therefore, you have the threshold needs to be higher to make sure that you end the farz ibadat. And I think that's the way of thinking beyond the hadith and the Quran and so forth as well, right? So many people don't know this. I mean, we don't really worry about it because it's all done for us, it's all announced for us, right? But what we really should be doing is trying to sight the moon, right, on the 29th when we can, and just generally having an interest in the waxing and the waning of the moon as well, because this is part of our tradition. I'm going to end there. So that's answered that question. Read the article that I put up about the Hilal by Dr. Suhail. We're not going to go too much into the moon debate for now because it's a lengthy debate. It's a whole lesson, right? And to be honest, we're not going to get involved in it anyway. But you know the basics of how it works. So it's if we quickly summarize, tell me which two fasts you have until Zawal to make intention for. Ramzan and? Is my question misleading because I said which two fasts? Nafil. So you have 3 fasts. Yeah, you have 3 fasts for which you can make an intention for. Why is that though? Why is it? Because they're fixed, you can't do anything else. Nafil obviously is slightly different. The reason for that is slightly different. What about the other 3 that you have to make niyat for in the morning or at night? Nazar mu'ayyan, Ramzan qaza, and Kuffara. For those 3 you have to. Okay. When you go to look for the moon, what night should you look at it?
29.
And what day should you not fast on? 30th, unless it's your habit or some other reason. What if you see the moon yourself? Fast. And if you don't fast? No kafara. Why no kafara? Because the qazi hasn't accepted your witness, right? Therefore there's deficiency, there's shak in it, there's doubt in it, because he has the authority, so you only have to do qaza for it. Sorry?
That person must be a liar anyway.
That's
what I've written down.
No, it's possible that someone has sinned and someone hasn't sinned. It's possible.
No, but you said you take one person's witness. All right, no,
Yeah.
that's a group one.
Now, what if there's something in this? What if it's a cloudy night? What will the imam do?
One person.
Yeah, the imam will do it. It doesn't matter who it is. One man, one woman, doesn't matter. Right? Because why though? Why don't we do it like we do in nikah? Why don't we do it when we're doing business transactions?
The hadith.
Because it's in ibadat, yeah, and there's a hadith as well. So here the threshold is different. A lot of people don't know this. They think, oh, you need 2 for everything. It's not true. Okay. And now you understand the logic behind it, because when you're doing things amongst yourselves, you don't want dispute. The whole logic is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want me and Zubair to go to court, for example. So you want to make it watertight. If it's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the day of Qiyamah we'll know. Right? But if it's between people like marriage, you don't want doubt in marriage. You don't want doubt in talaq. You don't want doubt in business transactions, because it creates a lot of problems. Lawyers make a lot of money out of it as well. Right? So this is what. Okay, what about there's nothing in the sky, it's a clear night. How many do you need? A group. Right? And the final question is, why is there a difference between having being one as a sufficient witness for seeing it and more than one for seeing Eid? Hadith and what else? Yeah, you wanna end it first. You gotta make sure it's complete. Like you don't want to take a risk, and you have less of a threshold because you really want Ramzan to, well, you ideally you want Ramzan to come in. I think that's been a good lesson for you guys.